The #1 Zerk in the world is facing off against one of the greatest Protoss players. What I've got for you today is a best of 5 series where in game #1 we find ourselves on Gresvin. Spawning right here in the bottom left hand corner, we have the #1 Protoss from Europe, and he goes by the name of MaxPax. His opponent though in the opposite corner, the #1 StarCraft 2 player of all time. We're looking inside of the main of Serral. When it comes to high-level ZVP, it really doesn't get much better than these two facing off against each other, and yet, in my mind, Serral is the clear favorite going into this. Honestly, we should be glad that there are other Zerk players out there, because if it wasn't for other Zerk players, Zerk would win every single tournament. The thing is, Serral's ZVP and ZVT are so ridiculously good that he rarely loses in the matchup, and he really only gets eliminated because he goes up against Zerk players as well, right? Every once in a while he goes up against, like, for example, a Raynor or a Dark or whoever else you have. Solar has won a series against him not too long ago. There's no denying that Serral's ZVZ is, I mean, good, but not quite as good. Ooh. That is a sexy little split. Ooh, that was hot, MaxPax. Sorry. What was I saying? Right, there's no denying that Serral's ZVZ generally makes him look a little bit more like a mortal man. Anyhow, MaxPax. Alright. Sometimes a little bit predictable with his strategies, but I've noticed he's been evolving quite a bit. So, obviously MaxPax, compared to Serral at the very least, has only been playing this game for a short amount of time, but MaxPax really has grown to become one of the all-time greatest StarCraft players we've ever had. He just doesn't play offline tournaments, which I have repeated time and time again. I really wish rather that, you know, he would play some offline events as well. That would be amazing, because I really like what MaxPax has been up to over the last year or so. This Nexus timing, I've been wondering about it. So, Serral is I think the only player at this level. Get the tumor? Excellent start here for MaxPax. I think he's the only player at this level of StarCraft 2 who regularly opens up with that 15 supply hatchery, and that's what he did in this game as well. So most of the time you go 13 supply Overlord, 16 hatch, 18 gas, 17 spawning pool. Okay. Anyways, Serral has been going for the extractor trick into a 15 supply hatchery on the low ground, then another extractor trick into a 15 supply Overlord, then eventually a spawning pool, and then after that a gas geyser a little bit later. The big difference is that your Zergling speed is going to be quite a bit delayed, but obviously your natural expansion cannot be blocked, so it's a bit of a trade-off. MaxPax just went for a Nexus here, like a good, what was that, 3 minutes and 10-ish seconds? Like a good 35 seconds or so before the normal time. He sniped a couple creep tumors on the other side of the map. I really like this beginning right here for MaxPax. He should be able to get a tremendous economy going here right at the very start. And I guess he's respecting his opponent enough though to not really dive that mineral line. He's just gonna settle for a creep tumor kill for now. Serral at this point is going to scout the third, and he is expecting it to finish up right around this time, but he might be a little bit confused to already see it chrono boosting there. Honestly, it shouldn't really change his game plan all too much, but I really like that timing right there on that Nexus by MaxPax. That would be very risky against a quote-unquote normal Zerg start, but against this particular opener here from Serral, it definitely seems like a good option. Alright, how many workers can we kill? 2 for now. Not bad. Third Oracle flying around as well. Protoss players have gotten really good at controlling these Oracles and all their early game units individually. It's very easy to think you can do this and then lose a bunch of your stuff. I can tell you that from experience. It's very easy for you to make a little error and just lose one of your Oracles, and then suddenly the Zerg counterattacks become a whole lot more terrifying. You want to dive deep with the Oracles to get a lot of damage done, but not so deep that you end up losing them, or even that you take too much hull damage. I mean, I think orange hit points over here is okay, but you really do want to, keep these units alive for the mid game as well. Now, alright, interesting. So, because of the quick third Nexus, MaxPax is thinking, yo, my eco is a little bit bigger than it normally would be. There's a good chance that Serral is not going to be prepared against it, because Serral did not actually see the exact timing of the third Nexus. Meaning that a charge lot with like Archons all in, right? An all in that is based around those two units is gonna hit a little bit harder than it ordinarily would. And he may very well be up to something here. Okay, so Serral did decide to go for a quick +1 melee upgrade. Lara's done at this point. We're gonna go into the Roach speed upgrade as well. There's the Bailing Nest together with the Infestation Pit. So Serral's setting himself up for a normal macro game. is he gonna be prepared against a very large influx of units here from MaxPax in just a moment? Seeing the High Templar warp in actually is really nice. MaxPax has decided though to go for a 4th Nexus of course here, so this is not going to be a complete all-in, but I do believe he's planning on putting quite a bit of pressure on his opponent, because otherwise you would probably not be going for the charge upgrade first. Although, I say that, he's just going to go straight into the Sonic Storm Research 2. So maybe he's actually using this defensively. That's kind of interesting to me. Generally speaking, when you see both the charge together with... Okay, that's not ideal. Generally, when you see both the charge together with the Templar Archives, it means that Protoss wants to go for some committed aggression. So it would be very possible, for example, to do both of those things that I just mentioned. So the charge upgrade together with the Templar Archives structure on just 3 Nexi, make like 10 gateways, warp in a bunch of Archons and just a ton of Zealots and go for an attack on the other side of the map. There's still a chance that MaxPax wants to go for an attack. Okay, that's 1 High Templar down. 1 Templar only. They're busy shooting water balloons right there at those Zerglings. Not really achieving a whole lot. I still find that one of the most curious changes we've ever seen to StarCraft 2. I really don't know why. I don't know. Like, I understand why, but like, it is not a very consistent change. So back in the day, in case you're unfamiliar, the High Templar never had an attack like that. It just had Sonic Storm and feedback, which is fair enough. However, at some point, they got that water balloon ability, and the idea behind it is that if you decide to use the all-army hotkey, the High Templar will have a basic attack, so it won't just wander to its death, right? So normally in the past, if you would attack move with your entire army on one big hotkey, they would just wander to their deaths because they didn't have a melee attack or like a ranged attack or anything like that. They would just sort of wander and slowly fly into the opponent's units. The thing is, they're the only spellcaster, I guess, that has that. I mean, I guess there's an argument to be made that like the Ghost has it or maybe the Queen. But like both the Ghost and the Queen deal substantial auto attack damage. Sorry about that, by the way, Zaggery. Zaggery the Zealot was not allowed into the plane. But for some reason, yeah, the High Templar, I mean, I think it deals like 0.5 damage per attack. So it really is just to make it not wander in. But why is the High Templar the only unit that has that? I don't know. You'd imagine that, you know, units like the Infestor, the Viper, stuff like that could use a very similar quality of life change. Anyways, suggesting Zerg buffs though in the current meta is considered quite blasphemous. Alright, here we go. This is a big committed attack right now from MaxPax. It's not the one I expected, but it's still dealing quite a bit of damage. Zealots in the main base have been working on some stuff as well, mostly just creating a distraction. MaxPax is now, however, already going up against that Lurker transition, right? And Lurkers are an incredible unit here for Serral. They're gonna be the ultimate unit to that, yeah, to counter that ground army from the Protoss player with. So you can already see on the other side of the map, Mr. MaxPax is still making Archons, he's still making Immortals, he's still making more Zealots, still going ground upgrades. He's not transitioning fully away from that ground army yet, but he does have a pivot on the horizon here with both the Fleet Beacon as well as those additional Stargates. Alright, now Archons are very tanky units. They can take a bit of a beating, and with a good engagement, you can actually still deal significant amounts of damage. Now, we've seen a couple High Templar going down here. I really don't like that very much for MaxPax. One thing I really do like, though, for MaxPax is that he is building up a tremendous economy. He's sitting at 94 probes. Fighting in the choke point over here, really nicely done. Yeah, Zerg in general, I unironically believe it's been balanced around Serral over the last couple of years. It really is kind of insane. I wonder what Zerg would have looked like in 2023 if Serral never decided to install StarCraft 2. You know what I mean? We've seen a lot of nerfs. Oh, man. We've seen like 5 High Templar going down. Yeah, 5 High Templar in total in this game. That's a lot. You really don't want to be losing that much. Yeah, Zerg maybe has lost a bunch more minerals here, but that is something Serral can very easily replace. Although, you know what? You do need minerals in order to replace those lost minerals, so... Okay. Let's try and get rid of these Zealots here. That hatchery for now will stay alive. The fight over here does continue. Oracles from the earlier stages of the game still putting in a bit of work. Love to see that. We have one cheeky little Lurker as well on the right side, just trying to be as annoying as possible. Okay, it is going to get shut down. Alrighty, so where are we going now? Well, we're going to the late game. The early game and the mid game are beyond us now, or they're past us. We're gonna try and transition right now towards some higher tier units. So, Nidus Worm coming up here for Serral. Greater Spire coming up for Serral. Second Spire, so he can double upgrade. All coming up for the Zerg. Mama Ship, in the meantime, on the other side of the map on the production tab. We should really be firing up the +2 upgrade. +2 is actually a massive upgrade for the air weapons, but at the very least, he already began researching those some time ago. Tempest right now coming up as well. I actually really quite like that. We've seen those quite a bit as of late, as like the very first late game Skytools units. So like in the early late game, I guess is what you can call it. We've been seeing, yeah, a couple of Tempest, and they seem very helpful, especially when it comes to, well, dealing with units that are at a bit of a distance. Roach run by over here. At this point, you really don't want the roaches anymore. They might be able to kill the Nexus. It's going to be close, but I think he'll be able to get it. Yep. Nicely done. Getting rid of these roaches right now and replacing them with more and more high-tier units. In this particular case, well, drones together with a bunch of infestors. Nidus Worm over here at the bottom of the map. MaxPax still roaming, though. Yeah, I was going to say, I think you have to get rid of that Overlord, because otherwise we would be seeing a Nidus Worm inside of the main base, too. Okay. He wants to move in there, but pushing up a ramp with Lurkers defending it, I don't think it's a great idea. Nope, don't think that's what you want to do. Okay, Nidus Worm over here, trying to just put in as much work as possible. Allowing both paths to escape, but also to obviously use it aggressively. The Mama Ship has scouted it right now. I think the Mama Ship was thinking about flying into the main base of the Zerg. Nice storm over there. Good fungal growths as well, though, really slowing down the retreat of this Protoss army significantly. Alright, Serral for now, yeah, manages to hold here, and he actually gets quite a bit of damage done as well. As you can see, for the resources lost, the game is, I mean, I would call this slightly in favor of the Zerg, despite the fact that he's lost a little bit more, primarily because Zerg is almost expected to lose more. Now, I say that, generally that's the case, because Protoss at this point in the game is sitting at like 75 workers or so, but MaxPax is sitting at 91. So, he's been matching the Zerg as far as income goes, and he's been trading more cost efficiently over the course of the game. So that means that it's, yeah, the Protoss player who's expected to be the aggressor here, which is not normally the role that they have at this stage in the game. Very interesting. Nidus Worm over here as well on the right side. Zealot already set up. There's a burrowed Zergling here that's providing Serral vision to be able to put down those Nidus networks. This one may finish up, but yeah, not gonna get much done. Alright. Lovely movement here by MaxPax. Yeah, I really like what he does. The question is his late game strong enough to go up against Serral's? I know he's been working on his late game quite a bit. The problem is that if you want to practice this, really, there's only one player that you can properly practice against, and that would be Serral. I don't know if MaxPax and Serral regularly play together. I would not be surprised if they do, because obviously if you want to compete with the best, you have to practice against the best as well, which is, I guess, a bit of a blessing in disguise if you are MaxPax here, but yeah, I don't know. It is very tricky to practice this sort of late game. If, for example, Serral doesn't want to play, how do you get better at it? You can play against other Zerg players, but none of them are quite as good. And I don't really know exactly how much practice, how much active practice Serral really needs playing the late game, right? Like, I can imagine he also doesn't want to give his main competitors any, yeah, advantages. Okay. Lurker's over here getting quite a bit of work done. Archon's now sneaking forward as well, though, and I really like this move. We don't really have that many spores. They're moving in this direction right now. Do we still have enough storms available? I do believe that we do. Brute Lord's getting a bit of work done, though, and that fungal growth together with the... Oh, yeah, I was gonna say, with all of that other damage output here, the game becomes very tricky. He decides to teleport out. MaxPax is gonna be forced to remax. Lurkers over here have been pushed back, at least for the most part. This bad boy over here already has 5 confirmed kills. Nidus Worm at the bottom of the map too. Chitinous Plating is gonna finish up for Serral, so... he could go into... Yeah, I actually wouldn't hate it. He could go into Ultralisks. Ultras feel like a bit of a funny unit to me. But if the Immortals are gone, so right now there's still 3 of them available, it is certainly an option. Getting rid of the High Templar as well for the other ground units like the Archons and stuff. Really, really nice. Okay. One of the difficulties for Protoss in the late game is that Spellcaster-based army. If controlled really, really well, that Viper Infestor-based force is incredibly powerful. So right now we're only sitting at Infestor tech, but I would imagine that we're also going to be seeing Vipers here before the end of the game. I do really like the double upgrading here still, so MaxPax is continuously getting whatever he can. I wouldn't have minded him. Does he have a second? No, he does not have a second Cybercore. I wouldn't have minded a second Cybercore to double upgrade those air units as well, but I guess he was already started with the +1 upgrade before he even got to any sort of late game unit composition, so maybe that is what ultimately makes this just fine for him. Just starting those upgrades nice and early. Going into a little bit of a Void Ray play as well. Now that's an interesting one. Nidus Worm somehow, some way survives in the main base. Tempest over here was probably tasked with clearing this out, but didn't quite happen. Okay, Zealots here putting in some work. Nexus over there will get cancelled. Look at the amount of money though that MaxPax actually has. So 9,000 minerals, 5,500 gas. Army value though, so this is the current standing army of both players in the top left-hand corner, significantly smaller than that of the Zerg. But he still definitely has been out-mining the Zerg player over the course of this game, which is a very interesting scenario to be in. We may very well see that move that we normally see Terran players make, where you get rid of a bunch of your probes, only to then replace the lost supply with more army units. There's gonna be a moment where I don't think you really want to be having this many probes around anymore, although it might naturally happen, right? Because Serral is still harassing the mineral lines quite aggressively. Another Nidus Worm pops its ugly head over here in between this dead space. I really think Protoss and Terran players should be controlling this part of the map a lot better. Recall is going to be used over here, so yeah, the Protoss army is going to be able to get rid of this. We've been seeing this space in between these two bases used to great effect over the last, I want to say, month or so. It's been very popular for Nidus Worms to be used over here in the late game. I love that burrowed Zergling. I don't know exactly when Serral planted it here, but this burrowed Zergling here is providing the vision that Serral's been using to put down the Nidus Worm, which is a really cute little play. And he's been using it to great effect now, many times already. Yeah, we don't have... There we go. We don't have any detection nearby until just now to get rid of that burrowedling. MaxPax figured it out, though. Okay. +3/+3 is gonna finish up here momentarily for Serral. Flyer Carapace level 3 already done. It's gonna make these units so much more powerful, especially against, well, units like carriers. Up to this point, though, have we seen any carrier at all? No. So we haven't seen any carrier play yet. That's very interesting too. So I was talking about how like the early late game seems to be very Tempest focused. Apparently MaxPax is not even really adding on any carriers here in this game so far yet. I think MaxPax is making all the right moves here. I actually really like what he's doing. So he's forcing the full split map, recognizing that he should pull out ahead if he can mine his side of the map. I'm still concerned though, because I rarely see Serral lose from this particular position. I don't even remember the last time I've seen him lose a proper late game like this. It's that absurd. It seems like the man suddenly grows an extra arm, and he's just like microing his units better than anybody else can. Alright, where are we at so far with the cost efficiency? It's starting to pull slightly more in favor here of the Zerg. The gas count is primarily what you want to be looking on. Or what you want to be looking at, rather. The lost gas is by far the most important resource, and at this point you can see that Serral is starting to pull a little bit ahead in that department. You can spend your minerals, obviously, on as a Zerg player at the very least, on, for example, Spore Crawlers. You can go into spine crawlers as well. Queens, of course. Queens and Zerglings. Those are important units. As Protoss, you can really primarily just put down static defense. Zealots are nice and all, but not very useful in the late game. Kind of like Zerglings. They can be used for like a run-by or whatever, right? But not really as far as like the main army goes. An Ultra accompanied by a bunch of Lurkers. Okay. Interesting combination. So I think in Serral's mind, he wants to basically trade efficiently enough to get to a point where he can win the game by forcing the split map. However, he wants to give his opponent one base less, if that makes any sense. This is a beautiful engagement here, though, by the Zerg player. That fungal growth combo with those Corruptors coming in from the side. Time Warp here is going to slow down at least half or so of these Corruptors, but a lot of those expensive Protoss units just ended up going down. The Mama Ship itself is not safe either. Lovely engagement there by Serral. Ay. Generally that bubble, right? That Mothership bubble, so it reduces the attack speed and movement speed of units caught within the Time Warp by half. And generally it almost functions like a, I don't know, like an animal growling, you know what I mean? Like, players do not want to engage even remotely close to a bubble. When a lion roars at you, you're gonna back off. You're not gonna get close to the lion. But Serral's like, you know what? It's kind of a cute kitty. I kind of want to, you know, I kind of want to hug it. Now we're going to go into the main base as well. We may be able to snipe some of these units as they pop out of the production structures. Serral finds a bunch of those Void Rays. Okay, one of them ends up going down. Nexus is also gone at this point. That trait, Serral rarely... Oh my god, he barely lost anything. Like, he's losing more now than he seems to be... Jeez, that fight was good for him. Wasn't he at like 4,600 gas? I think when I just opened the units lost tab, he was at 4,800. So he lost like 2 units in that entire fight. Pretty nutty. And that was only Brute Lord, Spore Crawler, Infestor, Corruptor. Alright, now MaxPax has cleared out a base as well. That's the same base, but in the opposite side of the map. Obviously, if neither player can mine any of those bases, then I think it's still really good for MaxiPax. Although, if you look at the resources in the bank right now, what was a massive advantage for MaxPax a little while ago, now it turns out to be an advantage right here for Serral. So Serral is adding on a couple of Ultras. Ultras are an interesting unit. Oh, once again, big fungal growth. Man, those fungals are insanely useful. We do have some Storms available. Would have liked to see some feedbacks as well. A couple of the Infestors, though, are taking critical damage, but they run away. Brute Lords here now raining their little Brutelings as well on the Templar, caught at a very strange angle. There's a Corruptor target right over here. But apparently we're first off gonna kill that Tempest, and then we're gonna kill the Carrier. For some reason, I don't know, man. I need to move my eyes around these engagements to, like, figure out where to go. And it seems like every single one of the Zerg units is flying individually. I know there's always that gut instinct, right? In the StarCraft community, that the reason why Serral is good at the game is because of Zerg late game. And Zerg late game is, of course, very good. But, like, sometimes you just want to sit back and admire, because the way that these guys maneuver their armies around, it is kind of incredible. Like, I'm trying to follow what Serral, you know, is looking at here, and I see that lone carrier at the bottom, but what Serral apparently sees is High Templar that can be shot at by those Brute Lords, fungal growth that can be used one more time before he needs to back off, because otherwise the Infestors would die to Storm. In the meantime, he's abducting one of those Tempests to get rid of, like, you know, one of those units, because the carrier at the bottom of that engagement, which would have been my prime target, it was gonna die regardless. And in the meantime, he's setting up little run-bys as well. Like, the amount of movement and the amount of decision-making in a very short amount of time, honestly, is kind of absurd. Now, this is an overextension here. One of the Brute Lords will go down. Still, may come at the cost of a couple of those Voids if the Voids don't back off. Alright. Fighting this late game Zerg army without High Templar is very tricky. I think we've seen too many Templar go down. Yeah, 14 Templar have gone down in this game. The thing is, High Templar are critical for both feedback as well as Storm. They're like an all-in-one unit, right? They're all-in-one package here. You really do need to keep them alive to the best of your abilities. And I feel like we've been seeing them wander around a little bit too much. No observer in this army either, so we're basically walking around here with full vision for the Zerg, so he sees exactly where that Protoss army is located. Those Ultras have been incredibly painful, right? It feels like such a strange unit decision to make against a Skytles player. But it really does have a lot of potential. Okay, MaxPax finally ready to strike back, it seems. He really needs to not forget about his upgrades, though, because I mentioned it earlier. This is nice and all. It's a nice thumbnail, maybe, too. Maybe I'll use that for the thumbnail. Anyways, he did not go for the second Cybercore, and he's only at +1 air weapons. Serral is fully maxed out, as you can see right here at the upgrades section at the bottom of your screen. Fully maxed out when it comes to those upgrades. MaxPax is missing 2 upgrades, which is a tremendous amount of, well, potential armor that he's missing on like half of his army. This is a very hectic game to play, but there is no reason, other than a mistake, for MaxPax not to have those upgrades done already. And even when he remembers it right now, it's still going to be multiple minutes before he will be able to finally get them done. I really hope he fires them up soon, because that is starting to really hurt. Those previous engagements would have looked a whole lot better. I didn't quite realize it because I made the assumption that he would have had those quite a while ago. Resources lost-wise? Look at that. Only Serral, man. Genuinely. Dark's late game is really good. Raynor's late game is really good. There's a bunch of players with really good late game. But switching from, like, Protoss losing less resources to Zerg losing less resources throughout a game is not something we see very frequently. Alright, well, MaxPax is still maxed out. He's got a terrifyingly big army, but it's not quite... Well, I mean, he can max out, rather. He's currently sitting at 180 supply. He really needs to get back into production mode. Look at him wandering around here, trying to, like... It's the decisiveness that's lacking right now. As decisive as he was in, like, the first 5 minutes of this game, it's been dwindling. He's adding on a couple Void Rays again. We're at 190 or 179, 180-ish supply. Maybe he wants to go for a bunch of Templar or something like that. Like Dark Templar, that is, to send them around the map. MaxPax, we have a lot more supply. Okay, he just fires up 1,000,000 Void Rays. Which is apparently a popular strategy at the absolute highest level, but also in Gold League. There we go, finally, man. Yeah, that's gonna be a painful moment. That's gonna be a painful moment. A little bit of a recall over here up north. Those Ultras are forced to back off once again, but as the Ultras are distracting basically the entirety of the Protoss army up north, the majority of the flying units here from the Zerg are ready to engage down south. There's not even really that much here to acquire for the Zerg, so he needs to be careful he doesn't overextend. Okay, that's one of the Tempest shots right over there. Not bad, but we have a couple of really lovely abductions. The High Templar not being used to as much efficiency as they can. I mean, he's only got 4 Templar here. They're only used for Storm. He's not really feedbacking nearly as many units as he could. We have a late game cannon rush over here. MaxPax using some of his minerals to try and get rid of this base. I think the Void Ray will probably do alright though. Maybe not. It's not something the Corruptors can kill, I suppose. The Photon Cannons here. Okay, Hatchery will indeed get cancelled. The gas bank is dwindling. I know it's ironic to say that with MaxPax maxed out. Maxed packs? he's maxed out right now. But he doesn't have enough gas. And I really think he should add on like up to like 8 High Templar or so here. 5 is nice. One of them is used for base defense over here at the bottom. He needs to use the Templar to feed back the Infestors as well as the Vipers and to also cast Psionic Storms. 4 of them just do not have enough energy for all of that. I might be mistaken, but... The Mama Ship also really does provide a lot of utility. I know a lot of people consider it to be a bit of a meme unit, but it's the second spellcaster that Protoss, yeah, can really use in the late game. We could be thinking about adding on Disruptors, for example, too. There are still ways to improve this Protoss force, but MaxPax is well, improving his army by making more Void Rays, and I'm a little afraid that there's at some point going to be a fungal growth, parasitic bomb, and the entire Void Ray army gets wiped out of the sky. Once that happens, MaxPax will be unable to remix. He will no longer be MaxPax. He'll be like 100 packs instead, which is not what he's aiming for. Very brave Brenda. Brenda does end up going down though. Ultras over here at the bottom. High Templar goes down for free, not casting any Psionic Storms. Maybe this is actually the big difference here though. The APM right there in the top left hand corner of your screen. Max is playing a fast game, 319 average actions per minute. That's a good couple buttons a second, like 5 and a little bit. Serral, however, is playing noticeably faster. There's another fungal growth, neural parasite as well. We even have a microbial shroud going down. More and more Tempests are now betraying their allies. Man. Serral's late game is just something else. MaxPax is flying around with these Void Rays willy-nilly. They've just been going back and forth for a while now, achieving absolutely nothing. We're gonna go into that Disruptor production. I wonder if it would have been a good move here for the Protoss to, like, for example, fly in through the bottom and then zap down that base. I think there have been multiple opportunities where MaxPax knew that the Zerg army was occupied at the bottom of the map, so that would have been a prime moment for those Void Rays to go into the main base. Kill the Hive. When the Hive is gone, you can no longer make Vipers as Zerg, right? And that's a big, big unit here for Zerg. You'd have to remake that. You buy a lot of time. I know all of these things are very small, and each in isolation would probably not make much of a difference, but everything added together, I really do believe, would add up over time. It's once again hovering over here. The Ling Bane Ultra Army just wandering around. Not going for the Baneling Speed upgrade, by the way. Apparently that upgrade is too expensive, which I find kind of funny. Not really what we need here, obviously, either, but it is kind of ironic. MaxPax late on the +3 armor. I mean, by like 15 minutes, but also after finally finishing up +2. More probes are going down here, and slowly that Nexus is being worked on. We have a... that targeting there is so interesting to me too. I would have 100% targeted that low HP one at the bottom. Apparently this is the moment where we are going to be going in for the prismatic alignment, but yeah, with the prismatic alignment being cancelled, suddenly those Corruptors can be very helpful, and that's a few more Voids going down. Tempest here trying their very best. We have a few carriers joining the battlefield too, but really not that many. I almost wonder if that's a misclick right there. In the meantime, the Zergling Ultra Baneling army here, absolutely dismantling everything that they can. Apparently the Void Rays have been coming back home, and maybe that's the reason why they originally were produced. Just to get rid of those Ultras. You can see that Ultras don't even really die to Void Rays that quickly. Alright, this hatchery over here is certainly very low, but apparently not low enough. Serral will continue mining them for a little bit longer. Keep in mind that this is only game number 1, by the way, of a best of 5. I gotta go live on Twitch in about 2.5 hours from now. I'm assuming I'll be able to... yeah, no, I think we should be good. Unless this series goes to game number 5 and every single game looks like this. In case you're unfamiliar, I stream basically every single day, other than usually Sundays and Wednesdays, over at twitch.tv/LowkoTV. There's a link down below in the description of this video. I don't stream just StarCraft though. I stream a little bit of everything. I do stream a lot of StarCraft as well, but usually I spend at least half or so of my time over there playing other games. Void Rays. Oh, they could have finished off that base. I really think they should be finishing up that base. It's starting to be painful, man. It really is starting to be painful. Serral is basically suffocating his opponent over the course of a 45-minute game. And while MaxPax is on his back, and he's still fighting right now, he's trying his very best, Serral is not allowing any real movement here from the Protoss. The only movement he's really allowing so far is the Protoss to go back and forth and maybe kill a hatchery or two here and there. But it's really nothing to write home about. Here we go again. Another big fungal growth. MaxPax not paying attention at this angle. Still no +3 air weapons and... Or sorry, +3 air armor for him. Zerglings going to town. I guess he's lost the Cyber Core at this point, so he can't even start up the additional upgrade. A couple of Zerglings here use the burrow ability too, so they can unburrow and continue harassing here in a little bit. Once again, we have a group of Corruptors just stalking the main base. Harassing wherever possible. Lurker still set up over here at the bottom of the map. If the Zealots right-click on the hatchery, they will certainly be able to get it. But I don't think he's paying attention to it, as we once again have a fungal growth right over here. Another fungal growth. Parasitic bomb, maybe some abductions, neural parasites. All of that would be amazing. I think he's saving some of his energy as well to try and go after those after those Void Rays. So I think that's why the Infestors and the, the Vipers are not just spamming their abilities. Serral is the absolute late game king. Babylon is gonna be game number 2. I've decided to fast forward through the first couple minutes of the game because everything is normal, although Serral did decide to go for a 16 supply hatch this time around, and he was forced to take the 3rd base first. Oracle coming up. 2 Adepts over here on the other side of the map, hunting for a couple of drones. Okay, not getting any drones, but at the very least a couple of Zerglings have gone down, although it came, of course, at the cost of one of those Adepts. Don't think that is quite what you're looking for. Okay, we're gonna be going for a standard 3rd Nexus timing this time around. I really like the early game from the previous game. I wonder if he should have actually committed to like a full-on... Yeah, since one of the Adepts died, Serral's gonna counterattack. I wonder if he should have committed to like a full-on Archon Zealot all-in, right? The one that I thought he was originally going for, but then he decided to just play Macro. MaxPax very much so is the type of guy who will grind loads and loads of games. So he is online all the time. I see him online basically all day, it seems. So he grinds loads of games, and I can imagine with that previous match, right? From that position he found himself in at like the 15-minute mark, he wins like 100% of the time. The problem is guys like Serral rarely play ladder, so Serral seems to do most of his practice, maybe doing some ladder games too, but I think right now he does a lot of custom games, or at the very least I don't see him online very much. Either that or he's playing on other accounts and he just switches all the time, I'm not exactly sure. Either way, yeah, you're not gonna play against Serral very frequently when you're doing ladder matches, and it's tricky. It really is kind of delicate. I don't know how other sports do this. Like, I'm trying to think of like other 1v1 sports. Like, for example, tennis. I guess in order to get good at tennis, if you are at the top of your game, it is very handy to play against other top-level players too, but that probably doesn't happen on a regular basis either, right? What about like chess? How do the top grandmasters in chess practice? I guess a lot of them do custom games, and a lot of them must be playing, well, the chess equivalent of the ladder. But you're not going to be able to play with Magnus Carlsen very easily, right? Like, he's not really gonna... I guess Serral, yeah, I think it's a fair comparison to make. Serral does kind of strike me as the Magnus of StarCraft 2. Now, I say this as somebody who only really follows chess from a very far away distance. I am by no means an expert. Although, when I was a kid, I was part of the chess club. Yeah, when I was in elementary school, I was part of the chess club, baby! I was certainly the coolest, yeah, I was the coolest kid in school, 100%. Girls loved me, dude. Okay, they didn't. Now, turns out girls do not really like dudes in chess clubs very much. At least not in my school. I don't know. Maybe that was just me. I actually don't know if I told anybody that I was part of the chess club. I think most people probably knew, but it wasn't something I would just, you know, walk around with. We had chess tournaments in my elementary school too. I was really good at those, but... I don't think it's really quite the flex that I think it is, right? To tell you that in elementary school I was able to beat up other kids. Anyways, speaking of getting beat up, MaxPax, no. He's once again going into the Templar Archives together with the charge upgrade, together with the +1 melee. I mean, or the +1 ground weapons. There's the 4th Nexus once more too. I really wouldn't mind seeing MaxPax transition towards an aggressive push, but this basically looks like an identical game, or an identical game to game number 1 here, right? So once again, all of this is looking basically the same. This may just be his normal macro opener now. Rather than going into the blink upgrade, which is what we normally see, it seems like MaxPax has decided that this is what we're going to do. Interesting. Okay. We have ourselves an infestation pit. We have ourselves a Baneling speed this time around. +2 melee is coming up. Serral not really making that transition to a late game army just yet. I think he's actually sticking around on Roach Ravager Ling Bane here for the time being. So we're at 90 drones, which is a lot of workers. I think 90 drones are very nice to have if you plan on just rolling more and more stuff into your opponent's base. Maybe that's the reason why we do see that quick Sonic Storm upgrade. The Sonic Storm obviously is a fantastic answer when it comes to that Ling Bane based army. Alright, the Hive does start up. Macro Hatchery in the main base too. It's a big indicator he wants to stick around on a lot of Ling Bane for the time being. MaxPax has decided to go into a Phoenix right now. I mean, the Phoenix is kind of nice at pushing back this unit. If it would be like a Muta transition, maybe to deny any sort of Nidus worms. But if we're gonna see multiple Phoenixes at this point, I'm not a big fan of that. Blink coming up right now together with the +2 air weapon, or the +2 ground weapons rather. I think, yeah, in game number 1 we had a massive air battle. I think in this particular game we're gonna have a ground battle instead. Maybe we'll have to transition later on. Don't lose the prism. No, 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 no. Oh, okay. Well, that's still very painful. Again, that may just be an APM limitation right there. It's very small. The differences are not that significant, but it's a few percentage points here and there. And in the end, at this level of play, 1% improvements are massive. A lot of stasis wards have been set up though. So MaxPax knows that this attack is coming. Adrenal Glands has been fired up as well. +2 melee is going to finish up in about 20, maybe 25, 30 seconds. The stasis wards would be buying that much time regardless. Okay. That's stasis ward number 1. Okay, good storms. Mostly just zoning storms, I guess. What MaxPax is trying to do is just buy time. He's got a nice little group of units here on the other side of the map as well. Splitting off a few zealots to maybe soak up a few of those Baneling hits, but it's not going to be done that easily. Serral move commanding with the Banelings, not attack moving with them. More and more stasis wards are gonna get popped. At this point, +2 melee is done. So these Banelings are gonna be capable of one-shotting probes, at least in the current StarCraft 2 patch. In the next one, we won't be seeing that anymore, so enjoy it as a Zork player while it lasts. Some beautiful storms going down right here by MaxPax, but yeah, he's gonna be able to push this all back eventually. Alright, alright. That's one of those where did that prism just come from? What in the world? Did we just army hotkey the prism? Yeah, that's what we did. We just sent the... I'm gonna go back one more time, sorry. Where in the world did that prism just come from? That prism was all the way over here. I think there's a moment in this particular engagement where Serral forces MaxPax to use the O-Army hotkey. Yeah, so that's the O-Army hotkey right there. MaxPax just sending everything back. He wants to make sure that this army over here gets cleaned up. Maybe he was trying to pull those units there from the right side. And honestly, killing the prism here is really quite a big deal. Anyways, it does show that MaxPax is a bit flustered, and he can't really go for a counterattack at this point. Banelings rolling towards the right side. We do see a response right there on those probes, and it will stay alive. That mineral line for now. Greater Spire on the back of this. If there's one unit that's really good. Oh, that was also beautifully done right there by Serral, man. That was like 4 Banelings killing like 10 Zealots, it seemed. Anyways, if there's one unit that is really good against a ground-based Protoss army like this, it is the Broodlord. Like, the Broodlord absolutely murders this sort of force. Storm? Do we have energy for storms? We don't have energy for storm anymore? Close your eyes, Protoss players. Oh, that was like 15 clumped up probes. Alright, well, that's the end of that Nexus. MaxPax has been reduced to 69 workers. Kind of nice, actually. He does have a base up north as well, though. So at the very least, that'll be his saving grace. But at this point, MaxPax does not know about the Brute Lord transition whatsoever. I would not be surprised if pretty soon we're going to see like 8 Corruptors or so on the production tab. We're going to see 8 Brute Lords and then a dead Protoss player. Serral in the meantime. I mean, he lost 1 worker probably because he made a structure or something, but he's still sitting at 89 drones. His income here is off the charts, of course, and especially now with those additional workers going down, it is looking a lot better. Now, it's a very cost-inefficient army here for the Zerg, but I think his strategy is to rinse and repeat and try to basically bleed out. Zealots! Clumped up, man. Too clumped up. Okay, eventually we did have a split, but now we have a couple more banelings coming in from the site. And in the meantime, the Zergling Ravager Roach army murdering that force as well. A couple of banelings over here too. Not scouted by the Protoss. 21 additional workers end up going down. Okay. Yeah, Serral's pretty good at this game, guys. He's all right. He's pretty decent. He could consider going pro. Oh look, more banelings. Those were the ones that were caught in stasis, but MaxPax never respected them enough to address them. That's now 29 probes going down. 52 in total. That makes this attack right here from our Protoss player essentially an all-in. Serral still has not brought out the Brute Lord, because I don't think he believes he needs it. Zergling counterattack over here as well in the top right-hand corner, getting a bit of work done. Okay. Adrenal Glands plus 3 Zerglings. That is a unit that absolutely murders. The only problem, I guess, for Zerg at this point are the Archons. If he can somehow kill those, he's going to be in a fantastic spot. But even that many... I mean, we have more probes going down, by the way. I guess we had... Sorry, I'm going to back off. Ah, was it just the Zerglings over here? Yeah, just plus 3 Adrenal Links, huh? Pretty good unit. Yeah, they're just messing around over there in that mineral line. Plus 3 missile is not going to be too far behind. We're even going to go into the plus 1 flyer upgrades. So he can go into Brute Lords here with, well, I guess soon to be plus 1 flyer. There we go. If he wants to. But he hasn't needed it. Honestly, plus 3 Lings alone are going to destroy this army. Look at that. Look at that Nexus. Gone. And what was previously an all-in for the Protoss is now even more of an all-in. Still a scary looking army here though, it's just not big enough. And that's it. Game number 2 goes in favor of the Zerg. Dragon skills, game number 3 and match point number 1 right here for Serral. Serral looking absolutely dominant though. Despite the fact that MaxPax looked like he was in a really good position in the first half of game number 1 of this series, it wasn't like Serral was particularly far behind either, right? It was just noteworthy because generally Protosses don't have that much money in the bank at that point in the game. Either way, Serral seemed in control of game number 1 from start to finish, and he dominated in game number 2. What do you do at this point if you're MaxPax? Well, apparently we're once again gonna go for a Stargate opener. Adept into Zealot? I don't think we want to be going for a Zealot here. Okay, yeah, he cancels the Zealot, goes for a Stalker instead. I do think that is the right choice. MaxPax did once again scout on the other side of the map too, and he found that his opponent once more decided to go for the Extractor Tricked 15 supply hatchery. Third Nexus here is gonna be, yeah, nice and early, third hatchery, did I call it a Nexus? Anyways, a third hatchery, I think that's actually what I said, is gonna be planted here at the normal timing. Link speed coming up. Is he once again gonna go for a Nexus here? At 3 minutes and 10 seconds like we saw in game number 1? Looks like he is not. In that case, I'm interested to see if MaxPax is once more gonna go into the charge upgrade together with Storm. I'm not sure if I like it that much, but yeah, compared to what we see from, like, say, for example, Hero in 9 out of 10 games, it is kind of interesting. Hero usually goes for the Blink upgrade together with the +1 ground weapons, but MaxPax apparently goes Charge, +1 ground weapons together with Psionic Storm and the Templar Archives, of course. Interesting. Third Nexus will be planted down here momentarily, I would assume. There we go, at 450 minerals. This, yeah, Overlord is forced to go into hiding here. Don't know if it's gonna get picked off. Probably should get picked off, to be honest, but Stalker was a little bit late to move. Okay. Is it gonna go down? It is. Phew. Spore Crawlers coming up. How many workers can be killed here by those first couple of oracles? Nothing. So far, nothing gets killed. So why did we decide to go for 3 minutes and 10 seconds third Nexus in game 1? Only to go for quite a bit later one in game number 3. That's interesting, because this is the same opener here from Serral. Nothing here, as far as I can tell, that is different here. Okay. So far, perfect game here for the Protoss. He hasn't lost anything, other than, I guess, a bunch of HP on that one Oracle. Hiding behind one of the dragon scales over here. I actually really quite like that Overlord there in the corner, too. Just to see if there's any units hiding in that area. Usually there'll be an Oracle or maybe a Prism. Now, maybe these Adepts can get something done. Okay, we gotta target drones. We do. Okay. It's not bad. Oracle's over here, getting a little bit of work done as well. At least distracting a queen. Maybe killing a drone or two. That's now 4 Adepts, though, that have gone down in total. So it's not quite as free anymore as it once used to be. Okay, so this time around it's going to be a much more conventional style. Oracle's still going to town, by the way. But this time around it's going to be Blink together with the +1 ground weapons. So no fanciness right here for MaxPax. Just a good old normal start. We're once again at that point, by the way, where some of the very best competitors in the game are talking about Serral like he is some sort of StarCraft god. Apparently Oliveira recently said, so Oliveira, the current world champion of StarCraft 2, that he feels like he can win against somebody like Raynor quite well, but whenever he goes up against Serral, he just assumes that it's a win. Like, he in his mind thinks it's a win if he is ahead at any point in the game. Not so much on whether or not he wins the game, but apparently he respects Serral so much at this point that if he's ahead at any point in the game, he feels like he did a good job. Which is a pretty insane statement coming from the world champ. I guess we should all be happy that Ragnarok was around at IEM Katowice back in February, but anyways. Yeah, ZVZ, man. That's really the only weakness. Okay. Lynx. Oh, they're gonna get it. Yeah, that Nexus is gonna be cancelled. 4th base, not gonna come up. So we have the Stalker army going around right now. Charge on the back of this. +1 armor also coming. And we're gonna go into the +1 ground weapons. Okay, so... Or +2 ground weapons, rather. So MaxPax going into double upgrades here. This is something that I quite like. More Zerglings here trying to just poke. We do have to get some sort of work done over here, though. Okay, 1 drone. Queen, maybe? Backing off to the safety of those bridges. Lovely. Okay, Queen going down. Here's the rest of those Zerglings, though, from the other side of the map. Oh, yeah. Yeah, okay. So that's that Stalker army gone right now. Serral's been making a ton of links, though, all things considered. So he could have been droning for this base over here. He still has 79 drones here in total, but he delayed the amount of drones here for that 5th base by quite a bit, which is interesting. Slow Zealots here, they don't have the charge upgrade yet, so they're gonna get picked off pretty easily here by just a group of links. They're also not really standing shoulder to shoulder very well. A couple of banelings here, at least attempting, but MaxPax finds them, and that's going to be the end for that group. Alright, we're going to be going into Robo Bay this time around. So taking a different approach to what we had in game number 2 of this series. Is there, yeah, there's a decent group of roaches out right now as well. I was going to say, if it's just going to be Ling Bane, maybe Colossus is also an option, but There are roaches here. And we'll probably see a hive pretty quickly again, too. Zealot warp in the main base. A couple of zealots over here as well at the bottom. I guess the prism ended up getting sniped here. I guess I already insulted the prism pretty much in, or quite a lot in game number 2, so we're not gonna go back up into this replay to figure out what happened. Okay, fine, I'll back off. What happened to that prism? Here's the prism. So it does a big warp in, and I guess it got sniped by the queens, but the zealots still finished. Okay, he didn't even attempt to unsiege it. Speeding up the game a little bit. Stalker army here continues in the top right-hand corner. And the Ling Bane army here continues dominating the left side of the map as well. 76 workers versus 76 workers. Not a bad spot to be in right here as the Protoss player. Zerg would much prefer being closer to like 85 or so drones at this point, but for now that's not going to happen. Ling Bane over here also a necessity. War Prism number 2 is going to continue the pressure here as well. There's oracles still flying around. Okay. Sustaining the banelings here as well. Okay, at least the majority of them. Prism goes into the main base, or at least it's thinking about it. Should probably see a transfusion. There we go. Not going for the transfusion very quickly, prioritizing. Yeah, it's almost like a bait, right? Serral not, like on purpose, not transfusing that queen there. Waiting until the opponent targets it with the zealots, and then he transfuses. It's the little things. Makes all the difference, though, over the course of a game. Now, this is what I really like for MaxPax here. This is not a game where Serral is at hive tech yet, so the Colossus is going to be a very handy tool. The ultimate counter here for Zerg against these sorts of units is the Viper, but in order to go for a Viper, you need to have a hive. And there's no hive available here. It's also not really a game where Serral can easily transition to it. I mean, he could maybe put down the infestation pit right about right now, but I think he wants to continue fighting in this game instead. Now he sees the Colossus for the first time. Roaches are still a really excellent option. This Protoss army is looking very small in comparison to the Zergs. This is only half of the Zerg army. Where's the rest of this Protoss ball? This is it, I guess. Yeah, there's a couple of zealots over here ready to go in for the counterattack, which I do really quite like. Lings over here, banelings over here! Good Stalker warp in, though. That Stalker, ooh, that was so close. That Stalker puts in a lot of work there, tanking the baneling hits. Zealots here up to the northern part of the map, getting quite a bit of work done too. But in the meantime, sorry, I missed it. Even though he was doing an excellent job defending basically every single area of the map, a group of banelings decided to roll down towards the 6 o'clock position. Yeah, and clumps like that will no longer die as easily in the upcoming balance patch, the upcoming balance patch of StarCraft 2. Probes will not be one-shot anymore by a baneling. And that suddenly makes this game a hell of a lot better here for Serral. Not going into a hive, by the way. Just sticking around on Roach, Ravager, Ling Bane. Not even any Ravagers, actually. It's just, yeah, just Roach, Ling Bane. That is a little bit risky, though, especially when MaxPax finishes up his extended thermal lance. Maybe if he goes into a bunch of disruptors. He's got a very good shot. This Stasis Ward, okay, will be activated. We should really see some chrono boost going down on these upgrades, though. Apparently, we're gonna try and just collapse on top of this. That Colossus is looking very exposed, or those two Colossi looking very exposed, and it looks like they will get destroyed. Mineral Line here in loads of trouble as well. Serral just bullying his way through all of those units. That base is never going to happen. We do once again have a group of zealots here up north. Looks like they have been hit and bruised badly already, so reinforcing links are going to be able to clean that up. Probes over here in a lot of trouble as well. That Nexus is still, well, basically empty. No probes over there to kill anymore. This Colossus with a, well, battery overcharge, it might be able to stay alive, but there it is. Serral dominates in this series over MaxPax as he wins 3-0.